our board members and faculty that Kat has reached out to, and then we will have time for Q&A. So, yeah. You want to go first, Kat?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Kat Callahan. I hail from North Carolina, getting my undergrad at NC State. I went to USF South Florida for my master's program. Spent 4 years at Winthrop University in housing, and then went to Florida State and got my doctorate in higher education. And currently I'm serving as a lecturer for leadership studies at Christopher Newport University, as well as adjuncting in the higher ed program at William & Mary. Most of my professional development has been within NASPA, starting from NASPA Florida to NASPA Region 3. I've been a historian for almost 10 years now for Region 3, as well as serving in the IEKC, the International Education Knowledge Community, for a very long time. I was past chair. My research is in student affairs and higher education history and the internationalization of those fields and leadership education. Most of my experience was in housing, 6-7 years in housing. Worked a little bit in vice president's office, athletics, leadership and service, and advising students. And then the 4 years I was at Florida State, I was the higher ed program assistant. So lots of experience working with incoming master's and doctorate students in the program.
And my name is Sarah Keener. I am a California native. I attended the University of Florida and graduated in 2013 with a degree in public relations. Did 2 years with Teach for America, and I taught elementary special ed in San Antonio, Texas, and then made the transition when I decided that I like big kids, not little kids, to pursue a master's degree in higher education, and I'm currently in my second year at UT Austin. I am also the graduate student representative for NASPA Region 3. It's kind of my first dive into NASPA and just getting to know all of the awesome professionals within the community. My interests really align with orientation, retention, recreational sports, career services, and university unions. I have a GA position within one of our university unions, and then I work as a career coach within our Liberal Arts Career Services Center. And I also completed a NOTA internship this past summer in orientation at the University of Utah.
All right, so we're just going to get started. Like this first outline said, this is no particular order. There's nothing that's more important than the other, so keep that in mind as we go through. I'm going to be sharing some tips and some pointers, as well as some of my personal stories. If anybody has any stories they want to share, just shoot us a chat. We can do that. So we'll just jump into it. Clearly, joining professional association is a big deal. That can be done in many ways. So you have the large versus the functional area. So coming into these programs, a lot of people are like, join NASPA or ACPA. And so you have these kind of larger associations. And then in a lot of departments, it's join ACUHO-I, join NACA, join NERSA. And so you have the functional area as well. My gut always says, go with what's free first. So if your department is going to pay for those functional area, associations, absolutely do that. When I was in grad school for my master's, I think our program waived the Florida fee. So NASPA Florida was our first place that we all got invested. And while I was at USF, we hosted one of the drive-ins at USF. So it immediately made us jump into that kind of professional association, whatever that means to you. Then you have the institution, state versus region. This is in all of the different associations you have. You can be a part of a global organization. You can be a part of the big NASPA, the big ACPA, or sometimes it's really just easier to start at that state level or even in the institution. So figure out what works best for you and do that. While you're in grad school, all of these memberships are a lot cheaper than they are once you become a professional. So now is a good time to kind of test the waters with a lot of these associations, figure out what you do and don't like, and go from there. So you have a lot of options, especially in your grad program. And I think the key to this entire talk today is you need to explore. in everything that you're doing, you need to explore the different options, because once you move into a full-time position, you're not going to have as much time, you're not going to have as much resources to be able to do that. So explore in everything. Start now. Don't wait till your second semester when your job, or your second year when you're job searching and you're like, oh, I guess I should join this organization so I can go to the conference. Do it as soon as you get in. So first years that are listening, go ahead and join those associations, and start getting the benefits. Because when you join these associations, you don't just have a line on your resume. You get access to resources, journals, other members, all sorts of different things like this. And so go ahead and do that now. Don't wait on that. Finding a mentor. You know, some of my undergraduate students this year, they got assigned to me as a advisee, and they emailed me and they were like, really looking forward to you being my mentor. And I just kind of laughed, and I'm like, okay, just because I'm your advisor doesn't mean that we have similar interests, all these different things. And so intentionally seek a mentor. Now, what does that mean? It can be a faculty member at your institution. It can be a staff member at your institution. It can be at the state level, regional level, national level, whatever that looks like. But seek out someone with common interests that you can explore, whether it be functional area or outside, and somebody that's going to not just support you and just be there all the time, but somebody that's going to push you to become better. I think a lot of us join these programs and we're not sure how to seek out a mentor. You know, people say, find the mentor, but how do you do that? You know, for some of the bigger conferences, you get matched up. You can get matched up with somebody more experienced in the field. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to click. So explore. Contact a lot of different people. If you know that you're interested in a certain area, reach out to some folks and see where that fits. You'll know when you find somebody that you can trust and who's going to challenge and support you. In my master's program, that was a faculty member. Right out of the gates, he was above and beyond more than a faculty member. He was there for me when I had issues with assistantships, when I had questions about the field, and he just was always making me think beyond what I'd come to his office for. So he wasn't just there to say, good, go do that. He was challenging the process. He was challenging my questions. And at times that's uncomfortable, but he followed through and definitely was there to support on the other end. And especially find your niche in your community. So these associations, especially your NASPA and your ACPA, are huge. They're absolutely huge. And so if you go to a conference, the number one issue is, this is too big, I don't know what to do, and I feel lost. NASPA has made that so easy. We have so many knowledge communities, the different regions, the state associations. A lot of you all, especially in the Southeast region, have state associations. So find what you're interested in and pursue that. So when I was in grad school, of course, I got immediately involved in the Florida Drive-In, which then gave me contacts through the other. So for the region, the regional director at the time invited me to serve as the historian. So I was like, okay, cool. So I've been a historian for years now. But my other big interest, because I was in housing at the time. So let's think about functional area. I knew that I loved housing, and that's where I wanted to be at that time. But I also knew that as a part of my networking, a part of my bigger kind of life net for Florida State folks, is what are my interests? And for me, that's history and that's international education. So the historian role filled my history love. And then I immediately contacted the Region 3 IEKC representative, and I was like, listen, I'm interested. What do I do? Started attending the symposiums, international symposiums that take place prior to the conference, which makes from a 5,000 person conference to about 150 or less. And so that was my community right away. And so from there, I would immediately go to the big conference, and it didn't feel so big anymore because I had my personal contacts. And I've been doing that now for over 10 years. I feel so old now. But the symposium was where I really got my start, and started to find the people that connected me with the field itself. And you'll find that when you seek it out. So again, if you're looking at the big association, find what interests you, explore, look at the different cases, and be intentional about it. Don't click every box. Let's be honest, you're not going to read all of those emails. Find some things that interest you and that you're invested in, and find some things that you're curious about. And you're like, maybe I could be interested in this, because now's the time to figure that out. So professionalism, this is always a big topic that people want to talk about when thinking about grad school, because we think, oh, you know, so-and-so is being unprofessional, or what is professionalism? So that's the big thing first. What does that mean? And the fact is it's different for every program, it's different for every institution, and it's different for conferences. Yeah, you know, 40, 50 years ago, you're going to a big NASPA conference, everybody's in suits, everybody is wearing blazers, you have to wear a jacket. That's important. But things have changed, things have evolved. We have come a long way, and you know, our professionalism isn't based on what we wear. However, there are always some circumstances that we have to think about, and that's what we would expect for our students as well. So first, understanding your institutional norms. Your grad programs, your student affairs division, or whatever department you work for, if it's an academic department, whatever, know what the norms are. Oftentimes, it's modeled by the higher ups, and if it's not, it's told to you. You know, we expect you to dress a certain way. I had a lot of colleagues, especially at South Carolina, that always talk about you be in your office at 8 o'clock and you're wearing your suit and tie, and that's how it is in South Carolina. Love that Southern gentleman thing. And every institution is different, and you have to feel that out. You know, don't expect from day to day that's going to change. If you know that people don't wear jeans, you don't wear jeans unless given permission. Student affairs and higher ed, I already talked about this. It totally depends on what's going on. And you have to be yourself, but you also have to think about what that looks like to everybody else that's in that space, whatever space you're in at that time. I wish I could go every day in my workout clothes. My life would be so much more simple. And some of my students might not complain, but other students might. So thinking about what that means to you is something that you need to address. Attitude. I've always had a chip on my shoulder. So attitude was always hard for me in general of, you know, when you are in a space and you know maybe things are unethical or things aren't going the way that you think that they should be, or whatever that looks like, it's putting on the face that you're still learning. You know, you're in grad school, we're in grad school, it's a time for us to learn. And it's a time for us to learn what works and also what doesn't work. So if we're seeing things in our office spaces, if we're seeing things with our fellow classmates, our colleagues, whatever, that don't seem to be professional to us, that's where we take it in. We start to assess our own definition and what that means. And that becomes a part of who we are as a professional. We don't have to say, oh, you shouldn't wear that, or you shouldn't be talking like that. It's something that we can reflect on, unless it's completely unprofessional, and then that's a different ballgame. But think about who you should talk to. You know, supervisors, coworkers, people, faculty that can address situations in a probably a better way, or in a more professional way than the kind of sometimes the chip on our shoulder that we may carry in class. So always thinking about how we, on a day-to-day basis, approach what we do. Appearance, not what you think. It doesn't, you know, I'm sure a lot of times I'm the typical professor. Today I'm actually not too disheveled, but most days I'm pretty disheveled. And when people comment on what I'm wearing, it's absolutely inappropriate. However, you know, there's a few things that I'll talk to my students. When you're presenting in front of class, or when you are presenting at a conference, whatever, what impression do you want to give? What impression do you want others to take about who you are as a person? And so when you're thinking about appearance, don't think about, suits and hair and makeup. Think about how you are. Are you being authentic to the person that you are? And I think that's the most important. But again, it's aligning with your institutional values and the institutional and departmental values and norms. Where you choose to go to school, where you choose to take a job, that's up to you. You make that choice. So if you make a choice where things are expected at a higher level than you would want, you play to that higher level because that's the choice you made when going to that institution. So thinking about all of these things and aligning them is really important. Language, just be careful of what you're and how you're saying things. I'm not talking about cursing because I'm the queen of that. But again, in the space that you're in meetings, in classrooms, what kind of language are we using? Are we being inclusive? Are we ignoring certain things? What does that look like as a whole when we're talking to other people? And again, how does that present us as a professional? It's a small world after all. I hate this song and it'll be in my head for the rest of the day. Student affairs is a tiny, 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 tiny world. Even when you go to the conferences and you're like, there's 6,000 people here, I don't know anybody. Inevitably, everybody that you meet knows somebody else that you know. And that is what makes it such a small world. That's a good and a bad thing. For professionalism, if you burn a bridge, people are going to know about it. And so it's finding those bridges and getting over those bridges and in an appropriate manner to get to the next space so that, we kind of hold this reputation of being somebody that others would want to employ, others would want to be around, others would want to trust with students. For me, it's authenticity combined with fit. So again, I've always chosen institutions that fit my personality. My personality does not fit a lot of institutions. I don't like to dress in suits. I don't like to always have pretty language. And so I believe that every place that I've gone has been a place that accepts that about me. The idea that I have to wear suits and cover tattoos and things like that, that matters to me. And so figuring out what matters to you and finding that fit is the most important thing. And professionalism in that context will always come naturally. Finding the fit for you is the most important of all of this, because then you don't even have to question professionalism. Academics first, no arguments. To be able to succeed in a grad program, you have to focus on your academics. And that is not always a message that we are given. It may be verbally given to us, but under the table, we may feel that we are obligated to our assistantships or obligated to our the other things that we're taking on that takes precedence. Because again, in a lot of our assistantships, we're working with students. And I don't know about you all, but I believe that my students do come first. But we're in a grad program, so we're here to learn. So your academics absolutely need to come first. The other big thing is a lot of people say you need to find a balance in grad school, and then in your full-time job and beyond. For the next 50 years, you need to find balance. That you're not going to find balance. That's kind of an inappropriate way to think about it. I was always told it's not about balance, it's about accepting what you can and can't do. So if, for the years I worked in housing and I was on call, I'd be working, possibly 60, 70 hours a week. And it was understanding that that was a part of that week, accepting it and being okay with it, knowing that next week I'm not going to be on call. It's going to be a different ballgame. So figure out a term to work with and use that. Some people have used harmony. They like that idea. But when people say balance, we're in student affairs. We don't really balance. Things come up, students come up, and you're going to work with those students, even if it means being 30 minutes late to something, or if it means, it'll never mean missing lunch for me, but I'll eat lunch with the student. But whatever that, figure out what that means to you. as I said, the assistantship messages may not always align with what you would hope. In some cases, in extreme cases, I've heard assistantships say your job comes first. But most play the game and say, academics are first, however, you need to get your job done, which then kind of sends the message of job. So understanding what that means, talking to who you need to talk to, and figuring out how do you succeed in your program. Because you're in grad school once, unless you go and get a doctorate. You're in your master's program, and you're here for these classes. You're here to learn, and if you miss a couple classes and talking about whether that's student development theory, whether that's organization and governance, whatever class you're missing some content that's really important to understanding students as a whole, which is understanding the rest of your job. So think about those types of things. And success is how you define it. For some of us, you do need to succeed in the classroom, but understanding that the assistantship, the internships, all of the things that we have along the way make up who we are as a professional. So think about what success means to you and do that. That again, everybody's not the same. We don't have the same stories. We come with different backgrounds, experiences, and that's going to play differently to this idea of succeeding in school. Do we have a message that somebody want to make a comment? Maybe? Hold on. Did anybody look at that? Okay.
I can speak though, not to say that I am doing this successfully by any means, but I have gone through a year now. And I think, even a year and I still kind of continue to struggle with this balance of being good in my assistantship and being good in my internship and being good in school. And we're wearing so many different hats and there's a lot that's expected of us. And so I find that my happiest days are when I make some time at some point of the day to do something for me that is completely unrelated to whatever it is that I have had to do that day. So for me, that's working out, or that's doing yoga, or it's cooking a really nice dinner with my boyfriend. But something that takes me out of all of the different things that I have going on so that I can focus on myself for a minute.
And sometimes we forget that, especially for those of us that worked in housing or during orientation season, all of those types of things. It's really hard to take care of ourselves. But for me, I know that if I don't get in a workout, everything else will suffer. So knowing what gets you through and what doesn't is really helpful. Okay. Oh, okay. So I always love this because if you're not in class on that day where you talk about particular student development theory that this particular vice president, in every interview, he always asks students, what student development theory do you use? There's this one story where an individual came to the interview and didn't really understand or know student development theory, which is learned in graduate school. And the interview did not go so well. Let's put it that way. But your vice presidents, the people that are going to interview you in the future, they care about your graduate education. They care about what you learned in student development theory, how you work with students. It's no longer we do this job because we love students. Okay, so we love students, great. Now, how do we help our students become better individuals? How do we move them from where they are, meeting them where they are, and moving in a direction? And being able to articulate that comes from your coursework. It comes from the experience with your students and applying the theories that you're learning in class and applying that outside of the classroom. Utilizing those types of things in your interviews is really helpful. And in particular, if you have somebody that says, oh, tell me about X, Y, and Z, you can be prepared for that. When we focus only on our assistantships in grad school, that may hurt us later down the line. Okay, so for some of you guys, you may be really interested in research. For others of you, you know that you plan to be a practitioner and that, and maybe you're going to be a scholar practitioner. We're going to do a little research on the side. So the first question is are you interested? If you have even a somewhat semblance idea of, yeah, I'm a little interested in it, get involved in that. And how do you do that? You have faculty, you have staff. If any of you have doctoral programs as a part of your program, you have a lot of doc students doing research. So figuring out who is interested in the same things you are, who's doing some of the methodologies that you're interested in doing. Again, you don't even have to be interested about the topic, but if you're interested in learning, jump on board. When you get those emails from your faculty saying, oh, so-and-so's looking to do some research, who's interested? Take them up on that. You could take a very small role. For some of you, master's thesis might be an option, where instead of doing a portfolio or something else, you may have the option of doing a master's thesis, which is some intensive research. If that's not an option, proposing it to your program. Is that something that could be an option? Don't be afraid to ask, because if nobody's ever done it before, then how do you know? So if you're interested in research, that's a good way to approach it at that point. Internships. This is the time to get outside of your functional area. Kind of dip your toes into other things that you may be interested in, whatever that looks like. You have formal versus informal internships, and you have institutions. The institutional internships, for example, at USF, I interned with the athletics office. But you have associational internships, nonprofit, and others, things like Fulbright. There are a ton of different internships out there that aren't the streamlined student affairs internships. You know, a lot of folks will do a KUKOI or NACA. But there are some incredible experiences beyond that that are going to give you the skills and the knowledge to be able to apply in your graduate program. It's also going to give you a different experience that a lot of grad students aren't going to have. And so thinking about how we package ourselves, and not in the long list of everything that we do, but how do we make ourselves marketable to not just our functional area, but to our interests and the things that we're extremely interested in doing and pursuing in the future. Sarah, I know you have a good experience to talk about here.
Yeah, so I did one internship last semester on campus in the international office, and I didn't have experience with international programming. I studied abroad when I was an undergrad, but it wasn't something that I was like, oh, I really want to work in international programming. But I coordinated a mentorship program for a group of students from Saudi Arabia, and so that was a really cool experience. And then I also went the route of applying for a formal internship program through NODA, which is the Orientation Directors Association. I will say, I can only speak from my experience going through that, but there are 200 spots for 800 plus applicants. So it is competitive, but it's also, you have to make sure that you're committed and you really want to do it. And I was really lucky to have found a host school that aligned with me, and my supervisor aligned really well with my interests. I am thankful for the time that I got away from, Austin and my program and the people in my cohort, because I was with them all the time. And so it was nice to get a break. I can't say that experience is, what everyone should do, but I do think it's nice to get some experience outside of what you are doing in your everyday graduate student life.
And that's not always an option, especially for our housing folks or orientation folks, where we were required to be on campus over the summer. And so what can we design, or what can we do for ourselves to give us a different experience in that location? And of course, we also have a lot of things we can do digitally in social media and on the good old internets. So how are we utilizing the resources we have? If we can't leave our location, we can still find things that are going to expand our experiences to make us more round in general for that lovely time where we go into the job search mode. Campus involvement. So what are we doing outside of our assistantship, outside of our internship, and hopefully not exhausting all of our time, but what else are we involved with? So this is where you have to be intentional. You have to have meaningful contributions. It is about quality and not quantity. I say this to my undergraduates, and I say this to my master's students. It is not about the long list of things that you did. It is about the quality of work that you're doing with an organization or an association. So I don't want to see that you were involved with 10 different things at 10% each. I want to see that you were involved with one or two things in which you were truly invested. You held leadership roles. You were able to articulate an experience beyond a surface level involvement. And that's what employers are looking for. Again, I know a lot of times we see checklists and we just want to check all the boxes, or we want to have multiple pages in our resume. But it's about that intentional involvement. And how is it, again, putting us in a situation that's really speaking to not just our functional areas, but the things that we're interested in. So for me, it was diving into history and becoming a part of and researching in historical lenses, and then the international. So not only was I involved in the IEKC, but I went on a couple of NASPA international exchanges. I went to France, I've been to Mexico. And then formulating those conversations and becoming that then leads to the networking piece, which leads back to my involvement outside. So what exactly are we getting involved with on campus? And what does that look like to our future employers, to the folks that we're talking to? The other thing, and this kind of goes back to the argument of balance and harmony, is the saying yes all the time. In grad school, you feel like you have to say yes every single time because you don't want to burn bridges. You don't want people to think that you say no. And that some people, that is their harmony, where they are okay with saying yes all the time, and they've accepted that they're going to do that, and to each their own. For me personally, I love saying no. Even, I need a lot of sleep, one, and when things are going to interfere with my sleep, and if I say yes all the time, I'm not going to have time for myself. I'm not going to have time for the quality things that I need to be doing in the classroom, in my assistantship, or in the other, the big stones. So in our jar, we have the big things that we do, and that's school, that's assistantship, that's maybe a few other things. We may have some family in there and friends that are involved. And so these saying yes to the little things. Oh, I need you to do this, or oh, I need you to jump on this conference program, or I need you to do X, Y, and Z. Figure out what your time looks like. And if it gets to the point where you have negative time, which many of us do, find your priorities and say no. And it's absolutely okay to say no. You don't always have to fully explain all the things you're doing. We ask grad students to do things and do extra things because most of them say yes. Just FYI. And we love that about grad students, but you need to take care of yourself. And if you're not taking care of yourself, you cannot take care of your students, and you cannot take care of your academics, and you cannot take care of your job. So when it comes down to it, always you make sure you're taking care of you. So figure out what that means to you. Some of us say, put your head down for 2 years and go. I'm more of the idea of put your head down and do what you can do, but don't feel like you have to do it all the time. So job searching and beyond, some of you guys are second years and you're starting to stress out about job searching in your first semester. It feels really good, doesn't it, guys? Some of you in your first year and you're already stressing out about your job searching. I'm going to say this, and I say this to everybody, and majority of people don't listen, and I've said it multiple times today, it's about fit. You have to find a place that is going to give you an opportunity to grow. You have to find a place that you feel is going to fit everything, and you're not going to find the perfect job. And, I was fortunate. I had 2 job offers. One made a lot of money. I was going to get a house, pretty exciting. I was actually going to move home, and there was a lot of incredible things about it. It was a very, very small institution. The other mid-sized institution, I'd have a lot of peers, wouldn't be making that much, but there was room for growth. And it was a tough decision. I mean, it's a tough decision when, one, a lot of money is very different. 2, the role itself, there's just some prestige with certain roles. And for me, making that decision came down to the fact that in the one job, I wouldn't have peers. I wouldn't have people to kind of talk to. In this other job, I would have peers, and I would have some possible mentoring up and down. And it came down to that because I knew that I couldn't come out of grad school and just do it on my own. I knew that I needed people to be on a level with me to kind of talk about things. And so that was my story coming straight out of the master's program. And after making that decision, which was extremely difficult, it was a lot easier for me from then on to make decisions based on intuition, based on fit, based on all the other things. I've had some opportunities in my career to, whether it's move up, move around, and it always comes back to this particular idea. I also had a master's student when I was at Florida State, and one of the biggest things is I got a job offer. It's really hard to turn down your first job offer because a lot of people may not get any job offers. So for my cohort, particularly in my master's program, a lot of people took their first job offer. Again, job, exciting, that's awesome. But out of the 18 of us, 2 of us stayed in our position after 1 year. And that was because the institution didn't fit, the job didn't fit, and they were unhappy after a year. Some moved out of the field. There's always a few that, those statistics wouldn't necessarily count. But it was only 2 of us that enjoyed our job because the fit was there. So thinking about those types of things when you're making decisions is important. So this particular student at Florida State, she got that first job and she was like, it's not exactly where I want to be. The job itself may not be what I want it to be. And she had a couple some bigger opportunities that were there. And so I asked her and I'm like, okay, so what do you do? Do you feel making this decision by taking this job, what does that look like for you? So she ended up turning down her first 2 job offers. And these were not like early job offers. These were late in the game job offers until the third one came about. A third one finally came late in the summer. And it was exactly a lot of things that she really, really wanted. And she just felt so much more secure about that decision. But a lot of times it's scary to be in that position. So think about those types of things as you're applying to jobs. Additionally, this is similar to our resume. When we go to whether that's NASPA job searching, and some of our colleagues are going to have 1 million job interviews versus our 4 or 5. Again, to me, that's quality versus quantity. I'm applying to jobs intentionally to where I feel like I fit, the job fits, the role fits, the community, the atmosphere, the institution fits. Whereas some people are just trying to get job interviews. So figure out what that means to you, and don't compare yourself. Comparing yourself is where we really struggle in grad school, because some people will get jobs in the first couple months of the second semester in their second year. And then we feel, okay, we haven't even gotten on campus yet, and we start to stress out. The social comparison is not what you need to be doing. You need to be thinking about yourself, your intentions, your fit, and doing that on your own. And don't worry about what others are doing and what's happening with them. Sarah, so I'm going to let you take some of this board advice before we get to our last couple things.
Sure. So we reached out to the other members of our NASPA Region 3 board, and we had a couple people submit their advice. A lot of them have been in the field for many years, so I take this wholeheartedly. So Becky Spurlock, a Senior Associate Dean for Student Life, and she has 20 years in the field. Her advice was, many graduate students worry about finding jobs or being able to quickly promote into the jobs they want. There's plenty of opportunity for jobs and for promotion. Spend your energy focusing on doing your job well, serving students, and growing. The rest will work itself out. And I think that speaks to Kat's idea about, finding a job that fits you. If you find a job that fits you well, you're probably not going to grow out of it very quickly, right? Like, you're going to want to stay there. You're going to want to learn from it. You're going to want to learn from the people that are around you. And I think, we are driven in this culture to achieve more and achieve it quickly and but we don't necessarily have to do that. The next is from Anthony DeSantis. He is the Associate Dean of Students at University of Florida, my alma mater. He has 19 years in the field. His advice was to follow your passion and do things in life that make you happy. It is easy to compare yourself to others, but it's important to create your own path. You don't have to do everything to be successful. Make an impact, stay the course, trust the process, and enjoy the ride. Very much aligning with what Kat has already spoken to us about. Abigail Brumfield, I think she is on the chat with us. She is the Student Government Program Coordinator at University of Tennessee at Knoxville. She has 2 years in the field. Her advice is to be a sponge, whether it is a Chronicle article, university newspaper, or speaking with a mentor. Learn as much as you can. Consider scheduling time in your calendar to read one higher education news source and another non-higher education news source. Example, business technology. And that helps you stay relevant, which I think is really important. Peggy's is very long. She's got a lot of advice. So she's the director of Counseling and Testing Center, and she has 20 plus years in the field. So that's probably why she has so much advice. I think the big touch points is, make sure that you're networking, no matter how you do it, make sure you're doing it for professionalism. Again, you want to stay authentic to yourself, but you also want to present yourself in a positive manner. Succeeding in school, do that as well. Whatever you need to do in order to succeed in school. And what success means to you. I mean, maybe getting all A's isn't important to you, and that's fine, but as long as you are doing what you need to do in order to be keeping up with your classes. And then campus involvement, take it all in. But again, kind of what Kat has talked on, don't do everything. Do what makes sense and what you're passionate about within the time constraints that you have.
That made me feel better because I didn't read those before. So
no, and they align very well with what you've already spoken on.
Yeah. So I reached out to a few, some new faculty within the field. So I just had a couple people respond. But volunteer or intern in different functional areas. You may find you like an area more than you realize. Take advantage of the resources for grads on your campus, particularly faculty and the professionals. You get out of the experience what you put in. So seek out mentors deliberately and make sure you have stuff outside of grad school, friends, a hobby, something. That's so important. Don't base your whole life on the people and the things that you're doing in grad school. Have something outside of that. This one was remind them that they will hopefully have a lot of chances throughout their career to get their experiences they want, but this will be their one chance to learn in their master's courses. Encourage them to be curious. If we had it all figured out, we would just tell them the answer, but no one does. So in many ways, we need them to be themselves and to be curious. And that's absolutely true. In your classes, you need to be challenging one another, questioning and asking and be curious, because we clearly don't have all the answers now. That's why we continually do research. That's why we continually are doing professional development, because everything's not perfect. So be yourself, bring your experiences, bring your identity to the table, and ask, and just show and demonstrate, and be a part of the community. And then show willingness to debate issues, even if it feels uncomfortable. Discussion begets learning. And this is another big thing in my classes. I think it's absolutely critical that we move beyond just feeling comfortable in a space, and you're challenging one another. This is, again, is your master's courses, a learning space for you to explore these different issues. And hopefully your faculty are creating that space within the classroom for you to be able to debate issues in a safe space. So that was just some of the different faculty advice that I got. But when it comes down to it, so my big thing here is everybody has a different story. We come to the classroom on a different path. And so the question I was posed was, how are you successful in grad school? And there's no one answer. Everybody defines success differently. Everybody defines all of these things in a different way. So be yourself, be authentic, contribute in a way that you know how. Know the community and know your institution. I always say be on time, because be on time. That's something within professionalism that never gets old. Positive media, social presence. And by positive, I just mean what does your social media presence look like? Is it for your students? Is it for your friends? Is it for your family? Knowing your digital identity is key, and how you utilize your digital identity within your professional identity. That, being able to align those two things is critical. But we're all a part of different programs, and we come with a lot of different stories. So understanding that somebody in your cohort or in a different year in a different program doesn't have your story, and trying to say, oh, well, this is what professionalism looks like, or, oh, this is what success looks like, or, oh, this is what we should be doing for job searching. As long as you know that you're being true to your intentions and to your path, that's what's important. Don't let sometimes what it feels like the community itself to dictate who you are as a professional. The reason student affairs and higher education is so incredible is because we bring so many identities to the table and we allow for those voices to be heard. So the minute that you start to see some of that not happening, that's where your voice needs to, you need to speak up and make sure that all of us are coming to the table, and allowing for our stories to be heard. So if you have a different story, share it. Make sure everybody knows, because that's what makes our community the best that it possibly can be. So how do you be successful in grad school? You already know the answer to that. So make sure you're continually doing that on a daily basis. And if you mess up one day, the next day is a new day. So be doing that. So I want to thank you guys for being here. I know we have a little bit of time for question and answer, so feel free to take it away. Does anybody have any questions or answers?
Yeah, and if you do have questions, if you would maybe take your
mute.
Yeah, take your mute off, turn on your camera, and then Kat, you can turn off the shared screen.
Okay.
But if no one has questions, it's okay. But we wanted to create a space where if you had anything that you wanted to ask about, if you had something you need advice on, or we could
you can also send it in the chat if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question here. So I'm going to be very locationally based when I'm looking for a job.
Yeah.
I want to stay at the University of Tennessee if possible because I've created roots here. So what is some advice for people who are looking to, job search very locationally based?
No, that's absolutely a great question. There's a lot of us that, whether it's family, friends, whatever it is, where we just want to be in that location. What I would say is do not limit yourself. Just because we were raised in a certain functional area or have a few experiences and whatever, the things that we learn in our classes, the things that we learn on the job itself, provide us with the knowledge and skills to be able to articulate that for any position. And that's the thing, is you can make yourself marketable in a lot of different ways. So I would suggest applying to anything that you think that you have the skill set for. To look outside. Just because we have our background in student affairs doesn't mean that we have to stay there, and it doesn't mean we can't come back. 3, use your resources on campus, so like Career Center, where you can help bolster and cater your resume and personal statements to different positions. I think sometimes we just have our one thing and we're like, here, this is me, instead of thinking, okay, let's tailor it to the specific job, because certain things that may not be in student affairs, it may be in academic affairs, it may be with faculty, whatever that looks like, is going to need a different focus. And I learned that when applying to be a faculty member, very much, hey, we don't really care as much about your student affairs background. How are you going to, and so I was able to articulate my skills, which make me more than qualified to do something different outside of my expertise. So I would say just, and UT is such a big space in Knoxville. Yeah. There's going to be some roles there, and inevitably we also have to figure out our priorities. If our priorities are location, then the type of position is going to be a secondary. And so we may not get that perfect job, but we're happy because we are where we want to be, and that's the most important thing.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anybody else?
We're good?
Okay.
Well, we just want to say thank you. It's been really informative. We really enjoyed our time. So thanks.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks
We
for
appreciate it.
Cool.
All right, and I'm happy to send out anything. And if at any point you have any questions, just feel free to email either one of us.
Mhm.
I do have let me figure out how to put this back up.
Yeah, I was gonna say we have our contact, and we have filmed this, so we will send it out. We've recorded it, so we can send it out to you all too.
Did we get to do that?
Yes, we did.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And then, yeah, Oprah.
Got it? Okay. Oh, there we go. There's our emails.
I think yours looks cut off, but
Oh, it's not cut off on mine, but it's my entire name at cnu.edu. So, but when in doubt, Sarah can get you in touch with me as well.
yeah,
I really appreciate you guys coming out. Thanks to Sarah and Abigail for doing all the logistics and inviting me to do this. And happy to help with anything. And if you guys are going to NASPA conference, regional, national, please find me, talk to me. Happy to talk.
thank you, Kat. Thank you, everyone, for participating. We really appreciate it.
Thanks. All right, we're gonna sign off. Bye,
Have a
guys.
good Tuesday.
Thank you.